let's move to Jeremey. Jeremey is in partnership, having a conversation about having kids and our views of what it takes and courting through all the unknown. How can I help, Jeremey? Tell us a little bit more about what we're figuring out and what you're actually needing some help with right now.
So we've talked about having kids. We've had conversations. There was a moment that my partner was thinking they didn't want kids, and that was really disruptive. And I experienced a lot of pain and sadness and confusion. And that was a lot of years ago, and then they've come around to wanting it. And I'm just also aware of my language, like they come around
To where you've always
to
been.
where I've always been. Well, and that's the thing is that feels really tender because I have known for probably my whole life that being a mother is something that seems like a path for my life. And I'm also not into the mother at all costs. I know some friends that are having children on their own without a partnership, and that's not my first choice. Like it's really later in the choices. And yeah, a big priority is being in partnership. And so we're having discussions, and the discussion turned a lot more heated recently, in which I feel ready and this partner does not. And and then they were explaining their reasons as to why not. We should have more money saved up. We should do this.
Mm.
And I said, okay. And my part in the disagreement is I said, well, those just sound like excuses because in my brain I see it differently. And so one thing I know I'd love support with from you is how to name something, and it is kind of how I'm saying it, but I'm realizing that the things that I see as non big issues for me, I'm realizing I'm labeling them as excuses, and I'm also like empathy for the other, realizing how invalidating that must
Yeah.
be. So
Knowing
that's, yeah,
what would you have liked to have said to them instead?
I see it really differently. And maybe even just naming to me that feels like an excuse because I see it really differently. And I'm imagining that that's really real for you.
What are you imagining is real for them? What are they trying to tell you they're caring about?
To me, it feels like there's fear that's really real, and there's something about stability and predictability.
So that might be a place to check it out. That might be, as I hear you say that, I'm wondering if you're feeling some fears about stability and predictability or security, or is that part of what's leading to some reluctance for you?
And I've asked that in a kinder way in the past, similar to that, and it's been like, yeah.
Great.
I
So
don't
then if
know where to
they,
go from that.
yeah, you can say that. You can say, okay, it's helpful to know that. It sounds like in order for us to move forward with this, you are wanting more stability and security in place. How do we move forward from here? Give me your version of what that would look like. And then what would they tell you?
I want to wait. That's
Until
where the
what?
conversation
Right.
goes,
But
is
then
I'm
I'd say,
like,
until
uh,
what?
right, right. And that was where then they came up with a number for
Mm,
savings. And
mm.
I said, well, the way things are going with my career, your hobbies and projects, we're not on that track. I showed them the numbers. I was like, we're not on that track.
Mm.
This is what we would be making if that is your goal. And then it turned into the agreement or the conversation of like, well, you're pressuring me. And
Okay.
I was like, okay, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
So you're saying, on one hand, you're saying, wow, when I see this number that you're putting down, I feel really disheartened and discouraged
Mm.
because I can't imagine a way of getting to that number in a timeline that feels good to me about having a child. And I don't know what you'd want from there. I might just ask them, what does it feel like to hear me tell you that? And then if they were to say, well, then I feel pressured, then I might say, okay, so there's something in you that feels like there's a pressure on you to do something you don't feel ready for. Is it like that? How strongly do you feel about this number? Is this a draw in the line ultimatum number for you, or is this a wish and long for number for you? Is there room for wiggle here? Are there other ways that we could get more predictability, more security, more stability? This is one strategy. Having a certain number in a bank account is one idea we have. What are other ideas? I might think about other strategies for the same needs. And then I would keep holding and naming the difference in the dilemma. Yeah, you're feeling pressure for blah, 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 and I'm feeling pressure in the following way. It seems like we're both feeling some pressure with a different objective. Is that how you're seeing it or not? With a different priority. Is that how you're seeing it or not? I would slow down the conversation to hold more of it before driving to a decision. I think more data needs to be on the table, and both people are needing more of their fears to be included and acknowledged before we're going to come to a wise solution or an agreement that is going to feel good to both people. Does that feel true to you or not really?
To me, it seems like we've talked about the fears a lot, and
Mm.
there's not a lot of action. And that's why I keep going to the story of an excuse. And then we went, okay, and then here's where it gets juicy. Because I was in this really heightened state. And I said, to me, it seems like these are things you're saying that aren't lining up with the way that we are operating in the world and the choices you're making financially. And so it seems like maybe you don't even want kids. I said something like that. And then the response was, well, I actually paused because I said, I think I know what you're going to say next, and I'm not ready for it. And then it's true. What they said was, well, what if I don't? What would that mean for you? And he's asked me that before. And that's a place I have a lot of fear going to, if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
What
That's a
does it mean
really
for you?
painful question for me.
Okay. Would it mean the end of the relationship?
Well, that's what I don't know. It feels at this moment like it would, but it opens up a lot of my original thing about the unknowns. There's a lot of known beauty in the relationship, and we have so much joy and trust and play and freedom together, and so we have a lot going on. And yeah, so that ties in again with the beginning of like I'm not just
Yes.
gonna break up with someone and go be a single mom.
So then you actually have more internal discernment work to do before you can continue having the conversation with them
Okay.
because you're not clear yet, I think, or you might be, and I just am not clear yet, which is very possible, of what your ultimatum is. And what I mean by that is at some point, you may need to get clear in yourself something like this. I love you very much, and I want to build a life with you. And being a parent is a top priority, and I want to be a parent with you. I'm willing to wait one more year for us to get to a place where you feel excited about this, on board with this, you have all the predictability and security that you need, and you're willing to take the jump with me without having every single dollar in the bank account. I'm willing to wait another year to see if we can get there. If we're not there by this date, then I will need to reorient because this is not a dream that I'm willing to let go of, or then I will need to go into a period of mourning and grief work to let go of this dream because I won't leave you for it. But I will likely be angry and resentful and need to go through a whole bunch of process on my own to make peace with this being the new thing that I'm deciding, so that I don't resent you for the rest of our lives together for not giving me this thing that is so important to me. But at a point, you need to be clear for yourself what your order of decisions will be, what's most important to you, and what kind of timeline do you want? Where are you willing to wait and flex? And at what point will you need to make a decision for yourself? And what will that decision be? This other person is telling you they're ambivalent. They can see a way to do it, and then they get scared and they don't want to do it, and then they do want to do it, and then they don't want to do it. And so what if I was in your position, I would need to get some clarity on, is the ambivalence a delay tactic to keep me in toxic hope that's never going to come true? Or is the ambivalence a genuine grappling with where I source my security and stability, and what work do I need to do to be ready to be a parent myself? And I would need the other person to be able to, if they can, tell me that, for me to know whether it's worth waiting and grappling further or not. And I'd also need to discern, if they were to tell me an ultimate no, does that mean I give up being a parent? Does that mean we stay partners and we become a throuple? We bring in a third person? I don't know. That may or may not fit with your ethical belief systems. And we just say, well, fine, then I'll have a baby with this person and we'll still be a primary partnership. Or no, that's absolutely out of the table, not the way that we do things. In which case we break up and I go and find another primary partner who is going to help me realize this dream and actually be happy about it and invested in it. There's a lot of creative problem solving that may or may not be on the table, depending upon everybody's beliefs and values. But I think the first step here for you is really getting clear on where your boundaries are. Does that make sense? Do you have clarity on that or not yet?
Yes, that makes sense. Thank you. No, there's definitely some work to do there because there's a lot of fear. And I'm really curious about this because I kind of operate under the framework that putting non-negotiables, what was the word you used? Ultimatum.
Ultimatums?
Yeah, and that's the fear. I'd love to hear your perspective of if I do say, okay, within 2 years, because 2 years, in 2 years will be the mark that we have originally talked about having kids. It's just that I have had a shift in wanting sooner.
Okay.
And because I don't see that we're going to be in a hugely different situation in 2 years.
Okay.
So that's my thing with the idea of an ultimatum. I'm afraid that there will be choices that they make and then use that as resentment. Like you were saying, if I make the choice to stay and then go do grief work to not become resentful, I think it's a not trusting that
Mm-hmm.
if I said the ultimatum, they went with it, that they wouldn't just pull that one on me
Mm-hmm.
for the rest of my life, right? Like, well, you
Mm-hmm.
wanted this, and
Yeah.
so this is what we
Yep.
have.
Yep. But that's built into the ultimatum. So let's talk about an ultimatum for a moment,
Yeah.
because it's a charged word. And I know we're running out of time, but it's a charged word. So when I'm talking about an ultimatum, a relational ultimatum, what I'm really just talking about is, what are my non-negotiables for what I need for my sense of well-being and meaning and purpose in my life? It's about letting you know the limits of my capacity. It's not to coerce you into doing something you don't want to do. It's not to force a demand on you. It's not to try to guilt or shame you into being somebody different. It is me revealing to you, listen, I know in my heart of hearts that I am here to have children. I will, if I get to the end of my life without having had children, I will feel unfulfilled and like I did not fulfill my life's purpose. That is a non-negotiable for me to live a thriving and full life. What you, dear other person, want to do with that is entirely up to you. You can either we're a good match here or we're not a good match here. There's no demand that you be different, but there is informed consent in me letting you know who I am and what's important to me. My job is to be as honest with you as possible about who I am, about what is important to me, about what I'm going to be fighting for and not fighting for, about where I can flex and where I cannot flex. And then your job is to decide how that lands on you and what you do and don't want to be in relationship with. Both people in full choice, but we cannot be in full choice if we don't have all the information. And we cannot make a true choice if somebody is giving us information that isn't honest. So your piece of it is the self-honesty and the courage to reveal what is true for you and to not override your own boundaries and your own sense of meaning and purpose to make other people happy. That's 25 years of therapy right there. I want to acknowledge that. That is hard for all of us, but that's the principle. And so the ultimatum is a little bit like, these are the limits that I can reasonably work within with you without it turning toxic and resentment. And then I would invite the other person to please go and do your own work to figure out where yours are as well. And there's something in the conversation about like, I get that you're scared. Of course, you have anxieties and fears. I really hear your desire to have a stable environment and to be able to provide and to have everything neatly and in place. And that makes so much sense to me. And I think I need to know from you to what degree you're willing to dive in with a certain degree of unpredictability and messiness and to just be courageous with me. Because I think some of this is not going to be predictable, and I don't know that the security and the safety is really guaranteed. And what I'm really asking you about is what it's going to take for you to have enough courage to want to do this with me with an open heart. And if that's not going to happen, I want to know that as soon as possible because it influences my decisions. And yes, I might leave. And yes, we might become friends. And yes, there may be grief. But it looks like in the conversations we've been having, there's likely going to be some grieving of some things as we go. And I'd like to address them consciously and honestly so that we're grieving the right things, not the wrong things. We want to grieve what's true, not an illusion. We don't want to stay too long based on self-betrayal and illusion because we're afraid of a loss. That's the courageous path forward. How's that landing? Does that give you at least some touchstones to begin organizing around?
Yeah, thanks so much.
You're so welcome. You're so welcome. It's complex and nuanced, and I just want to acknowledge and honor the thoughtfulness and the open-heartedness and the consideration and the care that you're bringing to the complexity of this. And take your time, but also let yourself know what your own timeline is and isn't, and honor yourself as you go through that. So, good
Thanks.
luck. You're welcome.